Welcome to the Once Upon an Island podcast. I'm your host, Wesley, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Mary.
And Mary, what is it that we are here to talk about today, as if people cannot read the title of this video?
Survivor Guatemala.
That's right. We are on to the 11th season of Survivor. Just as a brief recap, Mary and I have done deep dives starting with the Amazon through Guatemala. Though after this, I'm going to do a poll on the Patreon to ask them which of the first 5 seasons we should go back and rewatch to do a deep dive for. Eventually, we're going to catch up, so we have a deep dive for every single season. But right now, this is season number 5 we watched together in order. If I'm counting that correctly, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, that's 6. Wait, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 6. It's so confusing. 6 plus 5 is 11, except for when you're counting 6, then it becomes 6 and it's a whole thing. Anyway, so we're here to talk about the return of Bobby, John, and Stephenie. Danny winning it all. Rafe, Judd, Cindy, Bobby, John, Blake, and some others. We love every player who is on this season. Anything negative we say is not because we dislike a player. We like actually every player on the season. I just want to be clear. There's no one like Brian Heidick here, where it's like, oh, or Johnny Fairplayer's like, ah. We like everyone here. All right, disclaimer over. Okay, well, I'm gonna put that at the beginning. And if I don't, it'll be here at the end, and there it is. Maybe I'll leave them both places just as a reminder. But anyways, and we're just gonna go. I have notes. They're not in any particular order, and then I'm gonna pull up at the very end of this podcast questions from the patrons, questions from people on YouTube. They're not even curated. Usually I curate, like I go through and just I'll like double check the questions.
Oh, great.
But this time uncurated. I'm just going to do it live.
All right.
As somebody once said. So no particular order. We're going to go through the season. But so if you don't want spoilers in Guatemala, I don't know why you're here, but I hope you're ready because we're getting right into it. Because the very first thing I want to ask about and talk about is Danny. Mm-hmm. Danny Boatwright. For context, everyone, all day today, I've been working on Tom's story from Palau. And so Tom is filling my head. He's living rent free in my head, in his story. And Danny has, in my opinion, from the one watch we did through, I haven't gone back and rewatched and done notes and everything. I don't know what Danny's story is or if she has one. I'm hoping, Mary, you can fill me in.
Well, I mean, I feel like, of course, I knew she was the winner when we started the season, which doesn't happen often.
This is a season where Mary actually knew who the winner was going in.
I don't always know who the winner is going in. So I knew she was the winner, so I was kind of watching for it, I guess, or I guess more than usual. Yeah, paying closer attention to her. And she doesn't have a very compelling winner story like Tom or some of the others we've recently watched. Mm-hmm. But I do think she does have a good story in that she was great in her relationships. Like her social game was super, super good. And she really was good at challenges. So she played, I think, really hard. She did a really great job maintaining her relationships. And she did have at least one really good strategic move that they showed.
When she stole Stephenie's spot, that challenge.
No.
Oh.
Although I was saying strategic. I guess that would be another one.
Like, oh, it'd be a great time to switch to Stephenie right now.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. I mean, sure. No, it was a great strategic move to buy the advantage in the first place. Yeah. So, I guess that would be another one. But, I mean, she's not a terrible winner. Like, I still would say she was a better winner than
Jenna Maraska.
Yeah, probably Jenna Maraska. I feel like she actually played really, really hard.
With Jenna, it was almost like Jenna played a great last 3 days.
Right.
And then, but for the first 30 something days, you're like, what Jenna, is she even what is she doing? Like, there's a point where she's like, she's like, I want to quit. I feel sick. And
that was later in the game.
That was way late in the game. Yeah. I was saying up to that point, it's just it's unfortunate. I feel like, so for comparison here, I feel like, and maybe this is just a sign of the times, but every female winner up to this point has been, in my opinion, with mostly lackluster stories. Tina in Australian Outback, you'll see eventually. She's probably the most fleshed out. Though she has, her thing is let's take the strongest to the end, but then Tina's secretly backstabbing people, mm-hmm. And making deals and stuff like that. Though it's a lot more tame in comparison to everything we're used to now. And then the next female winner would be Visepia. Visepia has this like amazing comeback story, but Visepia is not like Chris Doherty in the confessionals. So even though she has an epic comeback, kind of like Danny here, by the way, who is completely down, I think at one point, like 5-1, 6-1, something like that. Like when Gary goes, that's it. Danny's by herself.
Should have gotten it. Right.
She should have had an epic story. But I think we can talk about, because in the reunion, Danny says, I was a stealth bomber. You know, I was not flying under the radar. I was beating the radar, which is just another way of saying I was flying under the radar, because beating the radar is like, I wasn't even in the game, actually. I was off playing Big Brother, actually. And then I came in a Survivor and won. That'd be like beating the radar. Like you weren't even, the radar didn't even know to look for you.
Yeah, I don't know why that's like a bad thing to be under the radar, flying under the radar, because that it really is a good strategy. I mean, she didn't have a target on her back. It's
very effective.
I would say she wasn't really completely under
That's
the
the thing. That's what I was going to say about all the female winners. So let me circle back real quick. That's fine. Tina was under the radar. Colby was always at the forefront. Like he was always viewed as the big target.
Right.
Then Visepia always had somebody in front of her until I want to say the final 5. And then she started cutting deals and cutting throats. And then you have, after Visepia, I want to say Sandra's next. No, sorry, Jenna Maraska's next. We briefly, my opinion, probably the least satisfying winner so far is Jenna, because it's like, it really doesn't, even though she's making good relationships, the show is like purposely almost feels like going out of their way to like make her not look good, even if she was doing good things, which kind of sucks. And then you have Sandra. Sandra's just entertaining. Right. And you can actually, Sandra probably might have the most clearly defined story of how a female has won so far. I know Amber, the next season, like has a defined story, but it's like mostly like attributed to Rob via the storytelling, whereas Sandra doesn't have like a Rob to like steal her spotlight. Right. I mean, people want to claim like, apparently one time people wanted to claim Rupert was doing all the work for Sandra, but like Rupert went home in like 8th or 9th place, like 10th place, something like that. He wasn't there long enough. So Sandra probably, I think, is the best story of all the females so far. But Danny here, I think it's come out after the game, or maybe it's during the reunion. I almost feel like that Danny said basically she didn't want to tell production what she was doing. So she just didn't tell them the professionals what her gameplay was. Yeah, but you still have
to make moves, and those moves are shown. Like there are a couple moves that she makes that it's shown, you know. So like just because you're not saying anything in confessionals, well, that's true. Like you don't have as much to work with as an editor if she's not saying anything in confessionals.
It feels less like where they kind of trashed Jenna with the edit in season 6. It feels less like that, where they're like trying to make her look bad. Whereas here it feels like she just didn't really have a story. Right. Like versus Jenna in season 6, where it's like she has a story. It's just like you didn't really want to root for her. Right. But here it's like I even if I didn't know Danny was gonna win, like Danny was on the likable side. But I feel like I didn't get to know her. Like, what was it like the next to last episode, or maybe it was the finale? She's like, "Oh yeah, the Kansas Jayhawks," and I'm like, "Oh, we're hearing about Danny as a person now for like 5 seconds." Like we didn't even if she didn't tell them about her gameplay, like why didn't we learn about Danny person?
We learned that she likes to celebrate her birthday.
That's true.
Which I actually think was a strategic move.
Yeah.
But
I want to be clear. I am not at all saying Danny is an unworthy winner. That is not what I'm saying. Yeah. I am saying I wish Danny had a more clearly defined story, because we just came off the heels of Sandra, Amber, Chris, and Tom, who I all feel like have defined stories, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever. I feel like we have defined stories of like understanding like what happened. And then before that, I know you didn't watch those other ones with me, Mary, but like Brian was very defined, very bad, but very defined. As I said, Visepia should have been defined, but she wasn't. So hers is the last one where it's like we reached the end, we're like, oh, Visepia won, and like why? And then before that was Ethan, who had a defined story. Tina had a defined story, even if she wasn't in the spotlight. And then Richard. So it's like really only Visepia, I feel like, is the only comparison point to Danny story wise.
Right.
But yes, we do learn things about Danny. It's just that like there's some hilarious things. Like when her brother comes for the family visit, she's like, oh, hey. How are my dogs doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't give 2 rips. Lydia like hasn't seen her brother in 2 years, by the way. How did they find weird. Lydia's brother? Oh, here's Lydia's brother. She hasn't seen in 2 years. Lydia's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But no, Danny like did like, yo, hey, what's up? Yep.
I liked it. I was
I like
this
Danny.
This question might come up later, like why didn't Stephenie win, or how did Danny win against Stephenie?
That was actually that's one of the few. We'll discuss why didn't Stephenie win.
Well, all I was gonna say was that I actually watched this and wasn't like, oh, Danny won, Stephenie didn't win. Like I got it. It was a satisfying conclusion to me.
Satisfying to me would have been like understanding, like it's almost like they could have hidden Danny or done what they did with Danny's story up until she was down 5-1, 6-1, and then like, okay, now I want to see Danny's about to like not get. She's about to win, and she's about to pull out an upset essentially, because really she shouldn't on paper be getting past the final 7. Once Gary's gone, Danny should be next, and I know in the show like it happens, like there's reasons why people go, but it just, I don't know. It really felt like I felt like a little shafted by the storytelling, but I don't want to sit here for an hour and a half talk about the storytelling. Yeah. Eventually, there will be a Danny story. The patrons at the moment of recording this are voting on the other stories are going to be told. The winner's always guaranteed, so Danny's story will be told. But that does lead us right into Stephenie LaGrossa and her return, and tell everyone what your predictions before we watch the season of how Stephenie and Bobby John would finish.
I predicted that both Stephenie and Bobby John would be out before the merge. So
Mary had...
I was thinking, I guess, a little bit more modern Survivor.
Yeah, you were thinking super modern. So, well, then how did you feel about how did you feel about Stephenie this go around? I know you liked her after Palau. How did you feel about her after Guatemala?
I still liked her. I think if she had done a few things a little bit differently, she would have won, and that would have been awesome. Like, that would have been the best comeback story ever. Like, coming from Palau that never won to winning her next season. Like, that would have been an amazing story, and I would have been super happy. But at the same time, we get to see a little bit more of Stephenie's aggressive nature, I guess, in this one.
I think you got more of Stephenie's true nature in this one. Because in this season, last season, she was playing from behind. Right. And then this season, she's playing from ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
So she has a much better season, obviously, in this one, and so she does get maybe a little bit, I don't know, power hungry, or you see a little bit of a darker side to her, I guess, in this one, which is why she doesn't win, because she backstabbed so many people and she controlled the game, and she wasn't a very likable character in the way she did it. Anyone
listening to this who has not watched Stephenie's story from Palau or hasn't seen the season, or if you don't remember all the details, my Stephenie story video, like I try to highlight the handful of times that she actually was a villain. And because it's almost like, it felt like her edit in Palau was like the Rupert edit, I'll call it, where it's like you have this hero and you want to really make everyone love them. So you kind of like ignore, like you not ignore, maybe overshadow the villainous moments, like the I'm gonna snap your neck, Johnny Fairplay. I'm going to lie to people as they go out the door needlessly, is what Stephenie did a lot in Palau.
Yeah.
She had her villainous moments, but it was like almost like overshadowed. It's almost like everything was like excused. Like there was a reason.
Right.
Like, oh, it's okay because of this. There's a reason. There's like no reason for all this lying she did in Palau. And then her like entitled attitude she had. And then it comes into Guatemala and it's like these same things just move into this season. It's almost like it's the same Stephenie. It's just now we're getting, I feel like, the honest edit. Like had Stephenie won, would she have gotten a kinder story? Probably. Because this feels a lot more like why did Stephenie lose to Danny versus why did Danny win the season?
Yeah.
Interesting. I feel like it's been since Boston Rob since we've had a why did X lose? Because the story of Palau is not why did Katie lose. The story of Vanuatu is not why did Twyla lose. But this season is definitely why did Stephenie lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone loved her after Palau, but here we are. The downfall of Stephenie.
Yeah. She did it to herself. It really was her own fault.
Yeah. But you definitely, I feel like you really got, you put both seasons back to back and you really get like a huge rise and a quick fall. But she played a great game. She played a great game on paper, but she didn't play a game to win. I don't know if she ever had a real chance though, because there was definitely hints throughout the season of like, oh, these, like, I don't think Bobby John and Stephenie are deserving of being here or getting a second shot. And it was like kind of there, but it wasn't like strong.
It wasn't strong enough to get them out. So I don't think people really meant it. I think they're just looking for reasons to vote people.
Well, of course, yeah. But when there's like 16 newcomers and 2 returnees, the 16 newcomers can be like, well, we're all going to band together over this thing that unites us, which is we're all new.
But they didn't.
Whereas had there been 16 returners and 2 new people, the returns would have been like,
right.
We need to get these new people out,
Sure.
So I hope that would never happen. That'd be such a dumb twist.
Yeah,
let's put 2 new people against 16 returnees.
And you're not allowed to vote them out till day 10.
What kind of crazy rule are you coming up with, Mary?
I don't know. I'm just saying they would have no chance.
Island of the newbies.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was in some of the early show interviews on the DVD. Some people said, I forgot who, I don't want to say who, but I do remember that some of the people did say like Stephenie out there would basically do things based on how she thought people at home would perceive her. Because I think the season was shot 1 month after Plow finished airing. So,
right, and
it was very recent.
That's another thing to consider is like she has just gone through this.
Yeah.
And Guatemala seemed to be even more intense as far as physically, emotionally, mentally. So, I mean, props to her because she did great. She got really far in the game, and it was extremely stressful situation. So, not excusing any of her behavior, but like I really can see how that would bring the worst out in you. And she still made it to the end.
Now, I listened to Survivor Historians because for this season for Guatemala, the Mario Lanza actually talked to Rafe about something and got some information. It takes listening through about 9 hours podcast to get the information, but
9 hours.
Yeah, I know. It's 9 hours podcast to cover the whole season. We will not take that long. I promise you. But so one of the things I want to mention is that Rafe claimed that the whole time, of course, remember this is all from one player's perspective, not the other 17 people.
Sure.
But Rafe said that at no point Stephenie could have won the game that season. That's what Rafe said.
He voted for her though.
Did he? I gotta go back and look.
He was the only vote for Stephenie. Yeah.
Gosh, he was the only vote for Stephenie. But I'm not saying that Rafe said that he didn't think Stephenie was worthy of winning. I'm saying Rafe said that Stephenie never had. You're right. I think Rafe did vote for her because they were hand in hand.
Because he was really upset that Danny. Well, he's really upset about Danny betraying him.
What Rafe's saying is not. Oh, Steph never had a chance of winning because I wasn't going to vote for it. No, I think Rafe's just saying like the sentiment was these 2 returnees. And this is what these are things he said like right after the season aired or like as season was airing kind of thing. It wasn't like years and years later when all these newer seasons have aired and it's like, oh, by the way, I want to come out and say these things. Yeah. It was fairly fresh at the time. So
okay.
There's one of the things, a couple other things since I have the Rafe notes pulled up.
I liked Rafe a lot.
That's good. Well, I mean, that's actually the next thing on my notes is Rafe. All right, I want to talk about Rafe. Let's first tell me what you think about Rafe, I guess.
I liked Rafe a lot.
Why did you like Rafe?
No, I like.
He looked like a clear winner for the season, I will say.
Yeah,
that.
I think that would have been a satisfying conclusion also if Rafe had won. I really just liked the way he played the game. There was times where he was in the majority and they were being bullies or whatever, and he got upset by it. And he kind of, even though he was kind of mild.
Am I part of the axis of evil?
Right. Even though he was like mild and wasn't like very abrasive or aggressive, he still stood up for other people and said what was on his mind when something upset him.
And when Jamie wanted to play what game was with him for like the 50th time, he's like, oh my gosh, we have to vote out Jamie. He's driving me insane.
Right.
Things you don't hear too often from people.
He was really smart. He did really well in the challenges. I just think overall he was a really great player, and I like the way he
Gosh, he won 4 immunities too. Like, to be fair, one of them was given to him by Judd when Judd's like, ancient ruin, man. By the way, I debated starting this podcast by doing my Judd imitation, but throughout the whole season of us watching this of Guatemala, I never could nail Judd's voice. So when we get talking about Judd, I'll try, but it's not like Rupert's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. By the way, so I wanted to say about Stephenie is like, it was like Rupert came back in All-Stars the very next season after Pearl Islands, and all of a sudden you get like, okay, maybe Rupert's not the genius I thought he was. Maybe Rupert isn't destined to win like I thought he was in Pearl Islands.
Right.
Same guy, by the way. Months later after Pearl Islands, it's within the same year. Like it wasn't even like years later. It was like within the same year of Pearl Islands. And here we have Stephenie, the same thing, like within the same year of Palau, like we went from, she has so much heart. So much heart. If only everyone else had as much heart as she did on this tribe, then they could win all their challenges. Like, what kind of insanity is this? Like, it's so different in Palau where it's like, oh man, now finally Bobby John's getting pumped up to win. It's like, oh yeah, if only everyone played as hard as Steph. And it's like here in Guatemala, it's like Steph's like not great.
I mean, she plays hard.
And she says the same things.
But she really is. I really did notice how negative she was.
Yeah.
I mean, we're back to Stephenie, but
well, I think it's important because Stephenie and Rafe, as claimed, is played basically the same game. I mean, at Final Tribal Council, Rafe's literally like, okay, Steph, like, what is one move? And this was like, to me, is probably the most one of the worst things you can say at Final Tribal Council is like, you've been accused of. In fact, she claimed as well, doing everything with this other guy. Like, well, what? You guys can't get mad at me for all these things. Like, Rafe did them too. And Rafe's like, okay, Steph, well, let me give you this chance. What's one move you made that I had no part of? And Steph's like, nothing. Oh my gosh, Steph, are you serious right now? So what she's saying is that Rafe should be here and Rafe should win. Not Steph just happenstance that she ended up here.
Yeah.
It's almost like what that sounds like.
Yeah.
But I mean, because Rafe played a cutthroat game, I don't know. The question then comes, does Rafe beat Danny in the finale in the final two?
I think he does because he did the same moves Stephenie did, but I feel like he just did them like people still liked him. He would put on a much
better final tribal.
Yeah, his final tribal speeches would have been much better than Stephenie. That's where Stephenie really shot herself in the
obviously
butt.
beat Stephenie if those two end up together.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think that's even a question.
I think he beats Danny too. I really do.
I remember, so Final Tribal ended, and I thought to myself, okay, was there anyone, once the merge hit, that Stephenie could have beat in the final two? Let's just assume that people who made the merge played the same game until the end of the game. They don't all of a sudden have a change of character. So I'm going to run you through each person. You just tell me, this isn't scientific, what do you think Stephenie could have beat them in the final two? Brandon.
Yes.
Okay, Bobby John.
No.
I think if Bobby John makes final two, Bobby John wins this season. Yeah. By the way, we're gonna get to Bobby John a little bit later. I liked him actually more this season than last season. I think he had more. I think he had a lot more character and layers to him. Jamie Newton. Dude, Steph beats him. You think Jamie beats Steph?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying no, Jamie doesn't win. Sorry.
Gary Hawkins, landscaper.
I think Gary wins as long as people really didn't know he was NFL. Apparently people did know.
Here's what I think would happen. Oh yeah. It came out after the season. If not, you couldn't tell during the season that everyone knew Gary. In fact, Rafe said like everyone knew he was a football player, just nobody cared. Like he's not like Brett Favre. He's not some like top tier. No one cared. I think Gary though would have had the funny question. If Gary makes it to the end, he would have had the funny question from Danny of like, okay, Gary, can you just like tell everyone who you really are? Like,
and
come on.
He still would have lied, and,
and he
people
still
would have been annoyed. So I don't.
He'd be like,
no,
that's not me. No, that's not me.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, Gary, you were playing 15 years ago. And remember, that's his one kryptonite because he said like, well, as long as nobody asked me what I did 15 years ago. Like, who's just sitting around like, all right, Gary, what'd you do 14 years ago? He's like, all right, good. I was just working on my landscaping business. Like, all right, Gary, what'd you do 15 years ago? Oh, no. His kryptonite. I think Gary beats Stephenie. Judd.
No, Stephenie wins.
I think Stephenie beats Judd. According to Rafe, Judd annoyed everyone including Jeff Probst.
Yeah.
Cindy Hall.
I think Cindy wins. I think Cindy wins that one.
I think Cindy wins. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Lydia.
No, I say Stephenie because I really don't think Lydia would.
According to Rafe, Lydia was.
I know Lydia was
so liked by everyone that's why no one gave her any rewards. No one, because everyone just saw her as she reaches the final, she wins it.
But if you really truly like someone or have a connection with them, you do take them on the reward, or you do.
I think that's a fair counterpoint. This is Rafe's point of view.
Sure.
This is just what I got from the Survivor Historians. Go listen to this podcast. You want like everything Mario said from Rafe. This is like, what is this, like secondhand? Like Rafe told Mario, and I listened to it through a podcast, and now I'm repeating it. So this is just what this is what I got from the interview.
I just don't think I think this is old school enough Survivor that she didn't do enough for people to respect her game.
I think it's close. I let's put it that way. I don't want to sit here and debate like who would have voted for Lydia, who would have voted for Steph.
Sure.
But I do think Lydia has a pretty good shot. It might be a pretty close tribal council.
It would be closer votes, I think.
I think Lydia's just super likable, and I really liked Lydia this season. One of my surprise characters of the season so far. Of course, we already said Rafe beats Stephenie, and then we already Jamie beats Stephenie. So really, the only people we're saying Steph beats is Judd, Jamie, and Brandon. But Brandon's a hard one to say because we barely saw Brandon. Once the merge hit, Brandon was just an unfortunate circumstance of the numbers.
Right.
So it's even hard. Brandon possibly beat Steph because I don't know how Brandon reaches the end because we didn't see him make it far enough. But
sure, yeah, fair.
Yeah, she had a hard time. I really think her best chance to go to the end would have been to drag Judd. If she dragged Judd at the end, I think
really
she wins.
would have.
Because Judd in the final tribal council would have been questioned by somebody, and you'd be like, "Dang man, you want to come at me, man?" Margaret stood up on day one. She said, "I have ADD." Is that something nice to say to someone, man? Like, he was just blown up. Like, remember, like, the first round council? He's, like, telling Jeff he'll do backflips he needs to prove that, like, bro, chill.
It's too much.
Yeah, I can't do the impression of him. Just know that I love Judd.
And that's the one, I think Stephenie would have taken him because I think she knew that. And that's the one really big strategic move that Danny did that probably helped her win was she did, it was very basic, very simple, but she just sitting there listening to Judd say, if you don't know the threats, you're dumb. Which is saying me and Stephenie are the threats.
I remember like when they were saying we should vote out Cindy, Stephenie's like, "But Rafe, people are gonna blame me for that." But then she does it anyways.
Right.
I think Steph could never win this game. The Stephenie, even in Heroes vs. Villains, it looks like the same exact Stephenie to me. She doesn't look like she like. There's no like.
It's been a long time since I've seen
a lot of growth because between Guatemala and Heroes vs. Villains, it's 5 years. Now, to be fair, it's now been another 10, 11 years since Heroes vs. Villains. I just think the Stephenie I saw in all 3 of these seasons, I mean, her best chance was Palau, which is crazy because she would have needed to sweep immunities and Palau to win. Yeah. Essentially, once Janu quit, she needed to sweep immunities, basically. And not even Tom could sweep the rest of the immunities.
And she really doesn't win that many immunities.
No, she won one this season. Right. Like, she won one individual
in her whole career.
The season. Didn't they, like, talk about her stats, like, many times? Jeff, I think by the time she's done with this season, if you really, like, okay, we can remember that she wins literally nothing in Palau, so let me look at how many she actually wins in Guatemala. It's crazy, though. Like, when James says that she is a curse in Heroes vs. Villains, like, I thought it was kind of harsh, and then we rewatched the season, I'm like, no, her tribe's kind of blowing it a lot, and it does, if you, like, look at it.
This one was much more balanced, but...
Yeah, but for like a while, like, okay, let me look at the who wins in each episode. But like her tribe was, aside from that very first episode where like, I think they had the benefit not only of doing a challenge where it's like heavily favor somebody like Bobby John, pull this boat up these logs. You know, that was the very first challenge of the season. Once it got after that, and all the guys, by the way, just like passed out the day before, if not the day of. Let me see. I'm trying to find the episode by episode breakdown of these challenges. But,
no, Jeff says that she only wins one immunity.
She won one individual immunity. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, her tribe, though. Okay, like
But obviously, she had to win more in tribe because they had more numbers.
So she was on the original Yasha. I think that's how you say that. They did not win immunity or reward in episodes 2 or 3. And then I don't know which episode the switch was in. It was either in 4 or 5. Or was it 4, 5, or 6? My goodness. 6 was the double tribal council. It wasn't that. It had to be 4 or 5. Point is that, man, like, it was rough. It was rough going, but we got other things to talk about from the season than Steph's terrible challenge stuff. It's like, and even like, but you see it though, like, even that one challenge, she's like, "Can you guys do a pick?" And they're like, "I don't know what a pick is." She's like, "Oh," she's just frustrated. Like, Steph is not a leader, because if Steph was a leader, like, if Steph had the attributes of Tom as a leader, she would explain to them.
Well, maybe she did, and they didn't show it.
Not necessarily what a pick is, but more so like what she just wants them to do. Okay, well, can you, Lydia, you do this? And the other girl who was probably completely wiped because it's 110 degrees in Guatemala. By the way, beautiful location. We haven't even talked about it. Great location on television. Terrible for everyone to live in. But she could explain to them, like, here's what I want you to do. Whether they actually did it or not would have been up to them, but it just looks like...
Well, she may have explained it to them.
Okay, but what am I supposed to do? Sit here and judge, like, okay, well, everyone might have done this. I can't sit here and do that. I have to judge based on what I saw.
Yeah.
And what we saw all season, and it's very consistent with her character in every season, is her just like getting frustrated. She's not like, that's not her.
So something we do see is her coming back from a challenge or a food reward challenge or whatever, and just being like, I am just so disappointed we didn't get food.
We didn't have enough
Can you
heart.
not believe that they didn't give or the merch fees? Like they didn't give us a merch fees. We swapped tribes and there's no food. Can you believe that? Do
you remember when they sacrificed that chicken?
Yes.
And then like, what was it, the next day they're like, look, we're gonna eat this chicken.
It was later that afternoon.
Was it the same day?
Yeah, it was the same day.
By the way, I like Stephenie this season. I think we get a lot of character out of Stephenie this season, but man, oh man, like were all her flaws just exposed. Yeah. I do love how the weather just completely shifted after eating that chicken.
Oh, it's funny.
It almost reminds me of the time in Tocantins where Coach is like, oh yeah, that storm's going to blow right past us. It won't hit us at all. And then like it immediately cuts to the storm is just raining down on them and the coach looking sad in the shelter. Like it was almost like that. Not as funny as that, but it was definitely like, shouldn't have eaten the chicken. Stephenie's just hungry a lot. She even says in Palau, she's like, well, the temptation of food is like my weakness. But like there, it's kind of like an endearing trait of her. It's the reason why she jumps and gives immunity to Tom in that first challenge. And here it's like,
they bring it up as like a bad thing.
Here she doesn't get to go on a reward, and she's like, I can't believe I'm not eating right now. She's like shoveling corn in her face. Yeah.
Well, that was when she was mad at Lydia for taking her out first.
Yeah.
And she was like, I just want to clear the air.
I know
that I need food. As she's like stuffing her face.
You can't see Mary, but she's imitating Stephenie eating corn right now. By the way, they were obsessed with corn this season. The Mayans.
That's all they had.
The Mayans are known for two things: corn and chocolate.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were known for chocolate.
They invented chocolate.
Apparently, whenever we visit the Maya culture at some point, the ruins, we're gonna have to get chocolate, local chocolate, of course.
Sure, let's go.
We're gonna have to apparently because that's two things they're known for: corn and chocolate. I wonder if they ever mix the two. They're like, all right, guys, this is all we got. All we have is corn and chocolate. Well, I mean, I think after eating a lot of corn, that's what your chocolate looks like. Anyway. So the next thing I have on here is Judd's craziness. I kind of touched on it with the Margaret thing. By the way, Danny was the one who accused him of having maybe of ADD. It wasn't even Margaret.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when Margaret says Judd has a problem with recall, it's because Danny is the one who said that, not Margaret.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, but Danny's so nice that she can somehow say things like that, but then it gets pinned on Margaret because I could see Margaret actually
brilliant move. I wish it had been caught on camera and shown to us. I don't know why it wasn't shown to us because I feel like at this point, how are they not catching that on camera? Hey Judd, don't you have ADD? Or maybe the production didn't even catch it. Like I'm sure everything was recorded, but it's like there's so much footage to go through. Yeah. Maybe they didn't even like know where it was.
Right.
And they're just like, all right, well maybe Margaret did say it. I don't know.
That's
it's like craziness. I wish we had seen that. Like seen that and then be like, well, that's a weird thing for Danny to say. Okay. Then we get to like episode 4 or 5, the one with Margaret going home and Judd accusing Margaret.
Yeah, he was definitely a character, that's for sure.
Yes.
He added a lot of entertainment.
Judd
drama.
was perfect for the season. I don't know if Judd, it kind of like reminds me of Rory. Like if they return, like is it just diminishing returns? There's no way it's as funny the second time. I really wish there was a season full of characters like Judd and Rory. But I don't think that would ever happen. And then like Amy was great too whenever she was turned on.
I liked Amy a lot.
Like turned on in the sense of like she had the energy because she injured herself. When I get home, if I look up Gary Hawkins, NFL player, Gary's like, she's gonna be looking for years.
It's not that hard.
Like there's no way that she can look up Gary, NFL player, Grand Havens, Michigan, without the last name of Hawkins and find him. Nope. And she definitely won't be at the reunion where he is, where they just got done watching the season. No, she's gonna be looking for years for Gary Hawkins.
Yeah.
Because Gary is dead set on no one's gonna know I played in the NFL. And to be fair though, he's the first celebrity in Survivor, like in terms of like there's no one in the first 10 seasons that has any sort of like,
but that's surprising to me.
No one's played in like a sport. Like Ethan was a professional soccer player, but like Ethan was not like
well known.
Yeah. And like soccer in the United States is just isn't a beloved sport. So
Sure.
Ethan could have been like the David Beckham of his time and still nobody would have cared. We know he wasn't, but nobody would have cared is my point. Whereas the NFL is like a huge thing here. So yeah, he's breaking new ground, and credit to Gary, like because Judd and Gary almost go hand in hand, because like when the Hidden Immunity Idol gets introduced this season, right? Mm-hmm, yeah. Crazy. And not Gary. Judd gets the clue to the Hidden Immunity Idol. And by the way, I know we discussed it while we were watching the show, but like that idol is like a little statue thing.
Mm-hmm. Like an actual little idol.
Yeah, it's like an actual immunity idol, which of course is impossible then to fake if it's like that. But we are just in the very origins of this twist that's going to remain in the show forever.
I'm so excited that they finally did it. And it worked out pretty well in this season. I thought it was
it was hard to find, though. Like they show you that shot in the reunion, or maybe when it was initially hidden, because they show in the reunion of him finding it. But it's like there's no like nowadays it's almost like walk down the path. It's at like waist height in the back of a tree with like colored string around it. And it's like back then it was like blending into the environment. Like talk about no wonder everyone was looking for it and no one could find it.
Yeah.
And it was probably like, I don't know how high it was in the tree, but like Gary's a tall dude. So he has Danny's tall too, but he has a pretty good advantage of like, if we're looking in the trees, like Lydia has a huge disadvantage in comparison to Gary. But yeah, Judd's like, it's definitely not on the ground, man. I got this clue, and I just want to let you all know it's definitely on the ground, okay? It's definitely on the ground. And then Gary sees Judd out looking, and Judd's just like head's like in the sky, like looking straight up into the trees. And Gary's like, well, if it's on the ground, why is he looking up at the trees?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Judd definitely unnecessarily lied several times.
Oh, I wish I could do Judd's voice.
And got
Judd was
caught
so great.
Several times.
Yes, Judd lies all the time, and then he's like, dang man, I forgot who he's even accusing. Remember when it was at tribal council? I think it was one where Gary went, and Judd's like, oh, I haven't lied all game, man. And then Gary's like, oh, so let me know what this is. And the idol's definitely on the ground. He's like, all right, man. So I told you I wasn't good lying, man. Like Judd. Like, I don't know what is going on with him. Like Jamie, like legitimately seemed bipolar, maybe. I'm not a doctor, because like one day he'd be like in a really bad, like my brother. My brother is a lot like Jamie in terms of how he acts, and it reminds me of him. Like my brother would be like one day be like giving everyone the reward and taking last place like Jamie did, and then the very next day be like, well, I don't want to be at this pool party. And that's what Jamie reminded me of.
Yeah, I mean, he was just I feel like he was just immature and didn't know how to handle the stress of the situation, and was a little bit selfish. So like I wouldn't say he was bipolar. I just think he was.
Oh, I'm not a doctor. I can't say he's bipolar. I'm saying just like a lot of what he did. It was like one day he's like
extreme,
super nice, and the next day he's like, and then him and Bobby John are fighting, and then the moment Bobby John's off the jury, they're like, every time you cut over to them, they're like yucking it up on the jury.
No,
like Jamie's like leaning on Bobby John. You did.
Because that's what I'm saying. Like he didn't know how to handle Survivor. But once he was off the game and was in a relaxed environment, him and Bobby John were obviously going to get along. They were like cut from the same cloth.
And they said throughout the whole season, like the temperature I hear is like 110, 115. It's like, oh my gosh. And they couldn't go in the water with the crocodiles eating them. They had to like go out into a cage. You know, they had the swimming pool basically was built for him as a reward, where they had the pool party, Danny's pool party. I just thought I just feel like Jamie, gets painted as like, because like, it's like he's like a villain one episode, and the next episode he's like a hero, and it's like, it's so confusing.
He's just a kid who doesn't know what he wants.
I can't imagine, like, I can't think of another season where like somebody just like flip-flops between the two like all the time, and it's like most confusing thing. But I just want to say, like, Judd is consistently does not have that problem.
Yes,
that's where I was going with this. Yes. Judd is consistently not having that problem, though Judd never understands that he's lying, even though he's constantly lying. It's like he lies and he's like, oh no, man, it's okay. Like Judd gets the beer, right? Like what, like 4 beers, and they're like, a beer's missing, and Judd's like, oh, whoever's the beer, man, they're getting it tonight at Tribal. And then cut to Judd's confessional. Yeah, man, I had the beer, but I got it for them, so they shouldn't be complaining. Like something like Judd. And Gary was, I mean, there's so many funny characters. Amy was funny. Judd was funny. Blake, I know I almost forgot about Blake, but Blake's like constant telling of stories, which by the way, I feel like I know a lot of people like this, especially when I was back in the Navy. People would just tell stories. It almost felt like a one-up contest. Blake's like telling everyone like, oh yeah, my girlfriend, she's got huge jugs. And they're like, oh yeah, Blake, tell me about that. I forgot who's getting Blake to bury himself.
I'd have to look at
it. It was pre-merge. It was like episode 5.
I just can't think of it.
It was like whoever's getting him to do it though was like brilliant. Like,
was it Brian?
Like egging him on. Was it Brian? Yeah, like egging him on to like get him to like tell bad stories.
Which was smart because he was like, the worse that he can seem in everyone else's eyes, the better I'll look, or the less of a target on me. So that was smart. But
there's so many good characters this season. It's such a shame that first off, not many people have been brought back. I mean, nobody's been brought back from Guatemala except for Stephenie, who originally is from Palau, of course, and then Danny. You know, we have all these characters, and it's crazy. We haven't really talked about the diversity, but there's like, despite the fact the very first episode, Jamie's like, oh, there's so much diversity here. We got a fishmonger. He's like, he's talking about diversity in like their jobs and their backgrounds. Sure. And sure, like, yeah, there is diversity in that, but there's no like racial diversity. It's like pretty much everyone here is like, Stephenie is Italian, I believe. Lydia, I don't know. I haven't looked up everyone's diversity or their race, but like Lydia, I don't know what race she is, but like, no, there's no one black here. Like, it's so strange. There's no black people. There's no one Asian of the Asian descent. From my observances, nothing. Like, it's crazy to me because in 2 seasons, we're going to go to a season where
Lydia's Japanese. So.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Is she?
Yeah, she was born in Japan, but...
Are you looking this up right now?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. She was born in Japan, and she had her dad or mom. Sorry, I just backed out of it.
But it's like, in a picture, it's the whitest cast you've ever seen.
Yeah, basically.
Especially of all scenes. Like, we don't even have, like... Usually there's, like, at least a few people, like 3 to 4 people of a different race that you wouldn't classify as white. Mm-hmm. And here, none. It's kind of a strange move. Especially when the next season... Not spoil too much, but the next season has Suri, her debut, and she's like one of the biggest characters of Survivor. Mm-hmm. And it's like, are we missing on gold like that? Because the first like 3 or 4 boots of the season, like Jim, and then the 3 girls who I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who they are. I know one's a magician's assistant. Like, my gosh, we have like all these girls who I can't even distinct between each of them. And it's like, we could have replaced all of them. Jim's fine. You always have your old guy, and unfortunately he got injured in the very first episode doing that immune challenge. But like these 3 females, kind of like almost like, it's terrible to say, like they're almost like cookie cutter because they're all like so similar. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't tell you who they are or what's special about them, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
Well, sometimes mistakes are made.
But once we hit episode 5 and like Blake's getting voted out, it's like the rest of the cast is super memorable. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't think about going into the season. I didn't see that coming. I thought this would have been a very, I don't know. I'd never heard the season being great, but this is like, to me, reminds me of Vanuatu. It's like very underrated.
Yeah, I think Vanuatu is probably a little bit better, but I did enjoy this one a lot.
Well, Vanuatu had a much more satisfying winter story.
Sure.
Like it was so much more clear. Like the women take control once the earthquake hits. The women ruin the men. Chris votes out Sarge, and then Chris comes from behind the whole time trashing the women. Like it's such a like revenge. It's a story of revenge, and here it's like it's a story of Steph losing, I guess. So it's not as satisfying, but character wise, it's so interesting.
Lots of good characters.
There's some good strategy here. I had this in my notes. Forgot to say it. Cindy's car decision.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was going to bring that up when I was talking about Rafe, and then we got distracted.
That's okay. I'm all over the place right now. But Cindy and the car decision, what do you think? Let's remind everyone. Cindy wins the car reward. Jeff's like, okay, everyone, we're going to address this thing head on. Anyone who has won a car in a challenge, not been given to it because they went on the challenge with Rob and had a date, not because they got the reunion of Marquesas or won it because they won the season like Tom. No, anyone who won the car challenge has not won the game. So Cindy, you have won this 2006 Pontiac, whatever this is, SUV. But if you want to give everyone else a Pontiac and then you don't get one, then they'll have the car curse, like kind of how he presents it. and you won't.
The car curse will be broken. He did not present it like they'll get the car curse.
It's I mean, he basically presents it as, you don't take the car, you win the game, Cindy, because you won't have the car curse. But if you take the car, you're going to lose. Maybe. And Cindy's like, I'm keeping the car. Yeah. And like she tries to hem and haw about it, but you can see it in her face from the moment this is presented, like she's taking that car. So what did you think?
I can't say necessarily that I would do anything differently, but I would hope I would give the other people the car. Because number one, it is a good strategic move because then people are grateful to you. I would imagine, like, you can't not, maybe a more modern day Survivor, people wouldn't care. But I feel like with that cast, especially Rafe and Danny, Stephenie, sure, yes or no, but Rafe, Danny, and Lydia, all three of them, I bet, would have been like, oh, so grateful to Cindy for the car and would not have just voted her out the next vote. I mean, sure, she got voted out the next vote and she gets a car. So she got something out of her experience with Survivor. But I don't know. I mean, that's a really tough decision.
Yeah. Well, I want to put this in context because, you know, we say like, oh, modern Survivor, would it be the same? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's just this season. So in the context of Guatemala, is this the right decision? So let's think about this because I remembered who liked this decision, who didn't. So from the top, Stephenie goes on the reward with her. Stephenie's like, oh yeah, you made the right decision. I would have done the same thing. Yeah,
because Stephenie's selfish.
Yes. So Stephenie's on the same page with her. So that's, by the way, we're I think at this point we're at the final 5 or 6. Which one is it?
It's final 5 because Lydia, Danny, and Rafe are all still left.
Yeah. So there's only 5 people. So she only, so all right. So then Lydia also back at camp says, Lydia said, I would have done the same thing.
No,
she made the right decision.
Lydia said she made the right decision.
Yes.
But that's Lydia. She's always going to support anybody's decision, and I was always going to be super happy. She at the beginning, before this challenge, she was holding the car key in her hand saying, this one's mine. I can just tell I really need a car. She would have been ecstatic.
Well, yeah.
I think that was just her saying no.
Don't get me wrong. Okay. So,
you can't say no. This is my perspective.
I know. I want to say that. I think that obviously if Cindy gave everyone a car, that would have been a hugely nice thing to do. But I'm just saying, like, here's who's mad about it. Here's who's mad at Cindy for doing what she did.
Rafe's
not
the
Stephenie.
only one that's mad.
Not Lydia. Well, I forgot. What did Danny say?
Danny agreed with Rafe, but she wasn't as emotional about it as Rafe.
Yeah, Danny was actually pretty unemotional throughout this whole season. Yes. In a very like game body way, which is a little surprising. Kind of reminds me of Brian Heidick from season 5. You have not seen Thailand.
Okay, well,
one day
I'm
you
just
will.
telling. I know his nickname, and she was not like that at all.
She wasn't like the Iceman. She was it wasn't the Ice Woman.
No.
I mean, because clearly she had emotion. It's just like the way, I don't know. It's just like crazy to me. So like, really, Rafe's the only one. And Rafe's like, oh, I would give everyone the car. I would give everyone the car.
Danny agreed with Rafe.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, oh, I can't believe it.
Well, Danny's like, yeah, I mean, that would have been the right decision
Danny
to
was
do.
like, yeah, I couldn't believe that she didn't give us all cars. Like, she's not making
But Danny
a good
wasn't
move here.
mad at Cindy. The only person who's like, even seems slightly upset with Cindy is Rafe. And Cindy was already, by the way, not in the numbers here. She just got blindsided when Judd went. I think she's the only one who voted with Judd.
Yes.
So she was going out the door. My point is, did she make the wrong decision? Would she have saved herself if she gave everyone cars?
According to you, she had 2 for and 2 against. According to me, if she had flipped, she would have had 3.
No, I'm saying she had 1 against and 3 for.
I think she didn't.
I think Danny's not against her because she took the car.
I'm not saying she's against her. I'm saying she would have made them extremely happy and she would not have gone next.
Mm-hmm. You think Lydia goes next instead of Cindy then?
No, I think Stephenie goes next.
Yeah, I don't think Stephenie's going anywhere. I think at this point, Stephenie is being dragged to the end. I think at this point, Stephenie's a goat. I think Stephenie goes to the end with anybody, she loses, and that's why Stephenie's going to the end. I think at this point, Lydia, I mean, there's been a swap. Right. I think Lydia goes and then Cindy goes after. Just would have been a swap. I think Cindy was, in this season, smart to take the car, though I do see Rafe's point, but Rafe's almost like, I would give everyone in the car. Rafe's like kind of like got like the whole like, I'm so humble. I would have given everyone the car.
He had kind of a goody two shoes attitude sometimes, but
yes, he did.
I don't know. It's a very big decision, and I don't know.
By the way, anyone interested in like what Rafe's up to, look him up on like Wikipedia or IMDb. He is like pretty successful now. Like he's way too successful to ever be on the show again. He's pretty successful in like television and movies and stuff. So I was like, wow, this is like kind of the origins of Rafe. This is like right after college before he like really does big. No, he's not like in front of the screen in movies and stuff. He's just like working on them. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. No, I just don't think. I think if but then really like, is it the wrong decision? Okay, she gives everyone a car. Maybe she wins the remaining immunities. Like, just don't know. Like, Cindy wasn't really. I mean, she won this challenge, sure, but she wasn't Tom Westman. She wasn't like, needing every win she could get.
I'm saying with this cast, they would have kept her for another vote, and you never know.
And then Lydia goes instead of her.
She was good at immunities. Like, she could have made it farther.
Yeah, I guess like what matters more, like the 1 in 4 shot at $1 million or the car. At this point, she chose the car. I mean, I can't. It's like it's almost like painted like this is the reason she went home, and it's like, no, she was going home anyways. She just had the opportunity to maybe stifle it for one vote. Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh, the car curse strikes again. Because I haven't seen Exile Island yet, but I'd almost imagine that's how it's going to be. Or I don't know which season is the next one to have the car. It's either Exile or Cook Islands. But
don't they only have like one more and then they just stop doing it?
Season 14 is the last time they do it. This was season 11. So one of the seasons I believe doesn't have it. I think it's Cook Islands because fan favorite that season just is given a car at the end of during the reunion. It's not like they win one during the season. So I believe it's Exile, and I know for a fact Fiji is what kills the car. But I think this is part of it. Like, okay, imagine you're Pontiac, right? And you're watching this, and they're in their mind, they're like, oh my gosh, everyone in the show's gonna be happy because they're all gonna get cars.
Well, not Cindy.
And then Cindy keeps the car, and they pulled all those cars out there with the idea that pretty much everyone on the cast is gonna get in their new car and be all excited about their new 2006 Pontiac. But instead, no one gets a car, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, you did the right thing.
Danny got one of the cars as the winner.
Well, I'm saying like nobody's even mad. No one's even really like super mad they didn't get the car. It's like, Pontiac's like looking for you to want that Pontiac, right? And everyone in the cast is like, yeah.
Well, right at that point, they can't be mad, but they were mad about it later.
I mean, I'm just imagining as a sponsor, this is not what you were going for. You were really hoping everyone's gonna get the Pontiac. And there's like excitement about your new car because you don't care about the show. All you care about is selling Pontiacs. Yeah. And you want everyone on Survivor to be happy about their Pontiac. And instead you get just Cindy. Well, anyways, it's kind of like, you'll see. Season 14 kills the car deals.
Good.
As much as dumb. Jeff, what?
No, I mean, I don't think it's dumb, but like.
Jeff claims season 14 doesn't kill, but I believe it does. I think most people do. You'll see.
I just think fan favorite should win it every year. I think that would be a better idea.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like season 4 at the reunion, like every single person, if I recall correctly, on the cast gets a car. It's like,
wow,
insanity. Like 16 cars at the time. Craziness. But yeah, okay. So the next thing I have, we haven't really touched on it, is Bobby John.
Good.
Makes a comeback.
I loved Bobby John in this season.
Yes. He doesn't do that much better on paper than he did last time. I think he maybe did one spot better, if not exactly the same.
No, he did better because he made the merge.
Well, he made the jury.
You made the jury, right?
To be fair, everything was delayed in Palau. Like, Kobe makes the jury and made the merge in Palau. But in all previous seasons, and even in this season, if you make the merge, the first person voted off after the merge doesn't make the jury. But because they delayed the merge by an episode in Palau, Bobby John would have made. Listen, what I'm saying is that Bobby John would have made the merge in Palau. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. But he wouldn't have made the jury if he was gone same spot. Yes.
Right.
So he does like one spot better this season, but it's almost like you can see glimpses of like Bobby John learned from what happened last time. In my opinion, like
no, I think they just edited him to be better, and you got more of his story in this one.
I don't know. I mean, without having gone back and get like detailed notes, I personally feel like Bobby John. I mean, he had some of his like weird moments, like the fish eating his dead skin off his shoulders in the
what are you gonna do about
swimming pool?
Well, how is that a weird moment?
When I make his story video, dumb decision. I'm just kidding. Dumb, and it's gonna be villainous all day. No, it's just gross. No, I don't know. I thought Bobby John here was. I'm not saying he's like, oh, all of a sudden Bobby John became a strategic mastermind. I just think he was a bit better here. Though once they hit the merge, it did seem kind of like he kind of just gave in.
Bobby John's never been a strategic player, ever. He's only ever been a physical player.
He would have been better. He would have been better if he was in an alliance like Rafe and Steph, where it's like Rafe's like the brains of the operation. Bobby John needed a brains of the operation for an alliance, and he never found that.
Because really, besides rubbing him and Jamie kind of rubbing wrong, which,
yeah,
to be fair, Jamie rubbed everyone wrong.
Yeah.
Bobby John got along with everyone really well. I think he had good relationships, and he worked really hard in challenges. I think he just didn't. He put way too much energy and focus on the challenges and winning challenges versus trying to win the game. But I don't think he had the strategic mental fortitude.
I think Bobby John, the Final Tribal Council, is infinitely better than Stephenie too.
Well, yeah,
because Bobby John, not in a challenge, is super respectful. Super nice. He's not the smartest one, but he's like the hardest working. You just like get like this noble characteristic from Bobby John. And he's the same thing here. Like in challenges, he still has like his eyes are bugging out when they're doing like that tug of war challenge. He's like, ah. And of course, him and Jamie go like chest to chest on each other, going crazy. Like Bobby John, the challenge is like this like wild Tarzan. And then everywhere else, he's like a respectful Southern gentleman. Like, hello, how are you doing? Like, I don't know. I'm just doing a
trying to be British.
Yeah, she's a British gentleman is what I was trying to do, apparently.
No, that's why I like him, is because he is your just typical Southern gentleman for real, not like Jamie, who says he is. But
yeah, Jamie was more like, yeah.
Jamie's a little bit more redneck.
Yeah, that might be the word for it.
Yeah.
Redneck, yeah.
But Bobby John, I don't know. I just was always impressed with his heart. He really just gave it everything he could. And he did it. Sure, he had a few times where he let his adrenaline take over a little bit much. But like, just as far as just being a great human being, I feel like he's a great human being.
Oh, Bobby John, I've seen him in a couple of things since this show. And yeah, I mean, he's like this. He's very consistent as a person. I don't ever get the feeling that Bobby John's like putting on an act.
Yeah.
And same thing with Stephenie, though, for better or for worse. Even though in early show interviews, they're like, Stephenie was constantly doing decisions that she was thinking like, oh, how would this be looked on television? But like Stephenie, even if she's thinking that, I don't think Stephenie is like, she's not like this master manipulator of like I don't know. Like Stephenie may have been cognizant, I guess is the word of it, but I don't think she had the ability to like, she said things are retarded constantly in the show, which has not aged well. And so like, I remember like one point she's like, why would they vote me out? That's retarded. Like quote unquote. That's what she said. And like, once I heard that, I was like, they're really going to make her look entitled this season. And you would never hear anything like that from Bobby John. No. I think Bobby John came out of Guatemala looking better than he did in Palau. And I think Stephenie came off looking much worse, which is like so crazy. Cause I went into the season expecting, we're going to get Bobby John and, it'll be the same thing. I don't know. I just didn't expect like that much more, but I feel like Bobby John gave me more.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the questions right now, by the way. So talk about whatever you want to talk about. What's the next subject?
I was just going to add on to Bobby John. I think he said it best when he was like, this game humbled me. And I truly feel like it did humble him, and he learned from it and he grew from it. Like I could see him actually being more like Jamie several years before, and he kind of grew up, and hopefully Jamie learned a little bit from him during the whole experience, but you could just see the growth, I think, of Bobby John. And it was cool. I
think, what's too bad is that since it was the season immediately after, like how much growth really happens in like 6 months since Palau. It's a little bit of growth. We do see some growth, especially in how he plays the game and stuff and who he is. I feel like we got more. I feel like in Palau I feel like Bobby John's very two-dimensional. I feel like here we actually got more dimensions to him. And Stephenie was kind of the same way in Palau. And it's probably just because we are getting another side of them. Whereas had we only seen them in this season, it would have probably felt more two-dimensional then.
Sure.
I don't think Bobby John, by the way, gets asked to... So, like, obviously you already know, nobody here gets asked back for season 16, fans versus favorites. Nobody from Palau comes back to fans versus favorites. Right now, all you know is that 2 people are coming back for fans versus favorites from season 9, Eliza and Amy, and then Johnny Fairplay from season 7. There are going to be 9 or 10, if I recall correctly, fan versus favorite or favorites on the favorite tribe in that season. So you've only met 3 of them. Crazy enough. I think next season is it next season? Gosh, we'll start loading up on people who will be in that season. But yeah. So do you have anything else you would like to talk about before I get into questions from people?
No, I mean, I don't feel like we really talked a lot about Lydia, but I did really enjoy Lydia.
I like Lydia.
She was a really good, positive impact in the show, and I liked her.
I liked Lydia. The most she came on screen, I was like, oh, what a hidden gem. Yeah. It's a shame we didn't get more from her. She in the season, because in the season she talked about, she's like, I think she said she wanted to win the car for her son. Am I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
What's very unfortunate is I heard, and I haven't looked this up myself, but I did hear that after the season was done airing, her son actually passed away. Aww. Which makes it even sadder if you knew that when you're watching that. Yeah.
That is sad.
Yeah, I liked Lydia though. If anyone could have been brought back for like fans' favorites, if we're really sticking to the moniker of favorites, because that's for the most part how they stick to it in that season, with the exception of Fair Play, I would have probably said Lydia. Yeah. I like truly who's like a character's favorite, but she was so overshadowed, unfortunately, in her show. And Rafe actually said that. But what Rafe said is that when they were out there, like they really saw Lydia and they're like, oh no, here's going to be the next like fan favorite character. Like everyone's going to love Lydia. And then when they watch the show, they're like, Lydia's like not really, even though she's like doing happy dances and stuff. And
I just don't think that I think there was so much going on that they didn't put a lot of emphasis on her.
I do think the show does have a tendency to prefer their crazy male characters versus the crazy female characters. I mean, straight up, like statistically, like even though there have been like some outspoken female characters, I feel like the show tends to favor the males more.
Well, males are just more crazy than women sometimes.
I think Lydia had enough to have her own story. I'm over here trying to defend Lydia, her honor. Anyway, so if you're ready to start with the questions, then I have a few. All right, I'm just going to read. So these are off the Patreon, and I'm just going to read them, and we don't have to spend an hour discussing each of them because some of them don't require that long. But well, the reason I say is because the very first question is from Anthony. He says, can we all agree Stephenie should have won?
No.
All right, next question.
I feel like we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that. That's why we're just saying no. All right. So someone replied to him on the Patreon and said no, and they explained. And he says, but between her and Danny, she made the most moves, made hard decisions. She came back as a returnee and made it to the end. Her social game was good enough to where everyone believed her. I just don't think staying under the radar is a winning strategy. And I think actually, if anything, we've learned through 11 seasons that under the radar is probably the most effective strategy.
Apparently it is. I mean, nobody really likes it, but it works. Yeah. So
under the radar, meaning like whether people are targeting you or not.
Right.
That's my opinion of what under the radar is. And really thinking it through, like Hatch was definitely on the radar. So he's not under the radar. Tina under the radar just because of Colby. Ethan surprisingly under the radar because of Lex most of the season. Until almost the very end. And then Visepia under the radar. So we have 3 out of 4 under the radars. Brian, believe it or not, under the radar until like the final 5. Like I can't even believe, like on paper, like how is Brian ever under the radar? Just psycho. Jenna under the radar. Sandra under the radar. Sandra was outspoken, but
a target.
When I say under the radar, I mean like not being targeted. Right. Like Rupert was being targeted. Fair Play was being targeted. Somehow was able to avoid it. Rob Cesternino was being targeted. Mm-hmm. Sandra was not being targeted for the most part. Like she didn't receive a single vote the whole game.
True.
Which is not the perfect way to explain it, but she never won immunity either to like save herself from votes like Tom did, because Tom was never received a vote, but he was only eligible at like 3 tribal councils. Tom very much on the radar though.
Right. Yeah.
So Chris was definitely on the radar. So and Amber was completely overshadowed by Rob. So you have 3 out of the first 7, I would say, were on the radar: Hatch, Tom, and Chris. Whereas everyone else was under the other 7 under the radar
to some extent.
And Danny under the radar. So here we are, 8 out of 11.
Yeah.
Under the radar, where like they were never like having to avoid. You know, it's just, I think this season comes off the heels of 2 seasons where like we have very outspoken winners who are being targeted, and which is exciting when they escape it and win.
I mean that is part of the game, though. Like you have to remember,
been targeted.
You have to remember that the people you vote out have to vote for you. Yeah. So like that really is part of the game.
Yeah, the key is just understanding, what does your jury want?
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what the public thinks. It only matters what the 7 to apparently now like 18 people who are voting what they care about. If they want you to play this loud, boisterous game where you play a bunch of idols and stab everyone in the back, well, that's what you gotta do because that's what they want, you know.
Right.
It's almost like trying to appease your audience. Like, what does the audience want? Because that's what I have to do to win. So anyways, through 11 seasons though, under the radar is the way to do it.
But okay, one more thing to say about that though. So what you said, you have to appease everyone. You have to know what they want. You have to build relationships with them. Danny was a great listener. Stephenie, no, she was a great talker.
Yes.
So like that's the difference. Danny knew what people wanted. Stephenie didn't.
I would be on Survivor. I would love to think that I would be some great listener, but thanks for laughing. No, I'd probably be just a talker. I'd probably be in the same camp.
You would
as
be
Stephenie
an entertainer.
And Judd. Oh my gosh. I would love to think that I would like go in there and like be able to stick to my battle plan for 39 days. But the fact is, after like a few days, I'd get too comfortable and I'd be thinking about food and I would blow it. The best I could hope for is making the merge / jury in a normal season, a non EOE season. I don't think if I made it to the end, it was because I'm accidentally finding idols, and that's not even my thing because I'm not observant at all.
No.
I have to look for things and like laser focus on them. I'm not like casually walking around and I don't know. I guess if I'm looking for idols, I am looking for idols. I'm laser focused on finding idols.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't see somebody seeing me find the idol. I would find the idol, get too excited to find it, and then like 3 people would probably see me doing it.
Probably.
Yeah, that would be my downfall. I'd find idols so everybody would know it. Anyways, all right, so next question. Giovanni, yes, that Giovanni, became famous in our last podcast when I brought up how the comparisons to Pokemon. He said, yes, I get this comparison all the time. Anyways, he says, is Rafe a combination of Tom and Ian from Palau?
He doesn't have the leadership skills of Tom, but I think he definitely has the strategic fortitude of Tom and probably the likability of Ian. So I could see that.
And then Giovanni has another question. But I don't really want to like say the question only because one of the players is a player you haven't seen yet play, and it might be a little spoilerish if I say it. He does ask though. Well, I will sum it up to basically say he wants to know, is Rafe anything like David Wright from Millennials vs. Gen X and EOE?
I love David Wright.
Is he anything like him though?
I feel like he had more confidence than David, but I could see the similarities.
Yeah, Rafe didn't have Rafe went into the season already fully formed. He wasn't like, I need to find out who I am.
Yeah.
Like David Wright did in Millennials vs. Gen X. And I try not to spoil future seasons in these deep dives to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens.
So you're going to answer these questions?
Is he like David Wright? I mean, I actually agree with your assessment. I'm not.
I'm just like, I answered.
Oh, yeah. I'm on the same page with you.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find the other questions. But no, if I agree with you. I also haven't seen Millennials vs. Gen X in like 5 years. So it's a little bit hard for me. And on EOE, David Wright was just like constantly trying to cut Kelly Wentworth. And it's not, I don't know if that's the same. I mean, if we're comparing him to that David Wright, no. Mm-hmm. Or we're comparing him to David Wright from Millennials vs. Gen X, like they're both like on soft spoken side. But Rafe was like David did win. I mean, David won some, at least immunity, right? Because he won that bat hanging puzzle.
Right.
I remember that was recently in a video. I don't know how many immunities he won this season, but Rafe was like a surprisingly immunity beast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, that but that huge maze they built, and then like the pond in the middle is like a bird, like visually really cool. Crazy. But then I didn't realize the challenge went on. I'm like, this actually doesn't look that complicated of a maze. Even though visually it's crazy.
It's hard to tell. You only get that brief overview, but
visually though, it seemed like
it was so physically taxing. I feel like they couldn't make it that mentally taxing as well. Okay,
I have the YouTube questions. Uncurated. I have not gone through and picked like what I think are the best of the best or anything like that. Okay. So Maximilian asks, do you think that Danny's strategy of not saying her game plan to the producers can ever be replicated in Modern Survivor, or do the producers have a rule to avoid that? I think we can say we don't know about the rules of producers of avoiding that. I have no idea. Sure. I feel like that. I guess the bigger question is, could someone do that again and win? I guess probably a very. What are the producers going to do? Kick him off the show? Let's think more. I think let's think more in terms like, could somebody replicate Danny's game? Yeah. Because Could somebody just not tell the show what they're doing strategy wise? Sure. I mean, I could sit there and tell the show that I'm doing other things, the completely like off base wrong things. And then it turns out I wasn't doing any of those things. So they're not going to use any of those things I told them because they're not even like, doesn't fit in any narrative unless they're going to paint me as, oh, I lie to the show, which I don't think the show wants to make themselves like a character in this. Yeah. But the question is, could somebody replicate Danny's game and win again? I guess that's another question. And I want to say...
That's a different question than what they're asking.
Sure, but I'm asking it now. Wesley's asking, could Danny's game, 1-for-1, taken from Guatemala, win again? And I think the closest comparison is Tommy from Island of the Idols. Not quite as under the radar, but he just got to the end on social strategy. Didn't have to play an idol. Didn't have to get immunity wins. Looked like he was very ripped, though. You think he would have gotten some.
He didn't win any?
No.
That's surprising.
I know. He was ripped. Okay. So the next question is, how do you think this season would have gone? Oh, I totally forgot to bring this up. If Wanda and Jonathan from Palau took the place of Bobby John Steph, because the rumor on the street is that.
Oh, yeah.
So going into the season, by the way, previews and everything, like the general audience didn't know Bobby John and Stephenie were going to be like players in the season pretty much until the episode aired.
Wow.
That's how like well kept of a secret it was. Yeah. Shockingly enough, it wasn't like promoted like the return of Bobby John and Stephenie as players in the game. Right. Some people actually did think at the time that it was going to be kind of like Island of the Idols. They weren't saying, oh, it's going to be like Island of the Idols. They were thinking like, oh, they're probably coming back in like some sort of, because this has been unheard of, like 2 returnees and an all newbie season. Right. Never happened before. We kind of brushed over that because to us it's not new, but at the time it was. But anyways, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, obviously it would have been like completely different because Stephenie ran the game pretty much. So I don't see Wanda running the game.
I see Wanda on that 11-mile hike at the beginning. By the way, crazy hike.
And then she would have got kicked off because she sang the entire time.
Just a small town, Wanda. The whole like 11 miles. We are survivors.
Somebody would have kicked her off the mountain.
Survivor. We're gonna build a Fort Bradley. We are survivors. Like she just yelling that. Like you're like, oh my gosh, Wanda, please stop.
I mean, maybe their morale would have been better and they would have won.
Maybe she would have learned from Palau not to sing everyone's ear off.
Maybe
she'd be like, guys, do I have your permission to sing this one song?
I doubt that.
You think Wanda doesn't have?
No.
She's just so excited to be back. Survivors, we're gonna build a Fort Bradley.
Yeah, it would have been
survivors.
It would have been very different, that's for sure. But I don't.
I think Wanda still goes pre-merge though.
I think Wanda still goes pretty early, so I don't.
Does Jonathan make it further? The very quiet Jonathan.
I have no idea. You don't know anything about him.
I do think the season is probably considered to be a more fair season in terms of strategy because you don't have you have like sure they're returnees, but like they never even attended a tribal council or went to an immunity challenge in Palau. So like sure they're returnees, but like
what do you mean they never went to tribal council?
They never went to. What do you mean? They didn't get picked for the tribe. That's how they got eliminated from Palau.
Oh, sorry.
So like Wanda and Jonathan. Yeah, I know. Wanda and Jonathan though never really participated in Survivor in any sense. Like they were on an island for a day.
Right.
And so the most they know is how to chop coconuts and find the water well.
Sure.
It
wouldn't have been that much help.
Yeah. So like they almost would have been brand new, but not quite. Everyone would have been like Wanda and Jonathan. Some people would be like, oh yeah, Wanda. And everyone would be like, who's Jonathan?
Right.
Who is that guy? Is he like a newbie? So I think the season would have been better though, I guess the question. I don't know.
You would have liked Wanda. But
I love Wanda, but I do think she was pre-merge.
I am super happy that they brought Stephenie and Bobby John back. Yeah. I mean, they're 2 great characters. They're 2 great players. They make good TV.
I feel like Stephenie was, of course, they brought Stephenie back. Bobby John, I feel like was just like, who's the male that made it the furthest from Oolong? Because like, is Bobby John that?
Well, it completes the story. It's like a redemptive.
I mean, it's better than bringing James back, I guess.
Yeah.
Could you imagine they brought James back with Stephenie? Oh my gosh. One of my subscribers loves James so much. He would have loved if James came back, but I don't think that would have been
it would have been interesting. It would have been another crazy male character on the show, I guess.
Yeah, we have enough of those. Alex asks, what do you think of Guatemala's location?
Well, I mean, we touched on that a little bit. It was
very
beautiful.
Briefly. Beautiful
And deadly.
I heard, rumor on the street is that after the season was done airing, a bunch of, I don't know what a bunch means, but we can say at least, I would say, a few people quit the show because of how harsh conditions were of Guatemala.
Like
Production-wise, which is a little crazy to me. Like, they're like, I don't know why they're like, I'm not even coming back for, I don't even want to know where season 12's at. By the way, season 12 next season, we are going back to Pearl Islands. Even though they will not use the pirate theme at all, from what I remember. It's very much based on Exile Island, the twist. Right. But they're going back to the location of Pearl Islands from season 7 and 8. So, if people quit based on solely on the location, maybe they quit mid-season. Maybe it wasn't after the season. I feel like I would understand a mid-season quit, but like once the season's done, like, why are you
always
quitting?
have people that are like, okay, I've done this for like 10 seasons.
I guess it
now.
could be, yeah.
Like at some point, you just, I'm sure,
not everyone is stuck with
something
the show
else.
from seasons 1 through 40. Some people are just there for a few seasons here and there, and I know some left after season 8, for example. So, all right, why do you think no one's returned from the season apart from Danny and Steph? I think the season probably gets forgotten, like Vanuatu, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, just because it had a lot of characters doesn't mean it has. I mean, we know that Jeff hated Judd, apparently, or couldn't stand Judd. So, just because someone makes good TV doesn't mean that they should come back. And maybe they've been asked and they don't want to come back. I mean,
I bet
there could be lots of reasons.
I mean, if you're thinking about it from a production standpoint, they probably just have a negative feeling towards the season because of how harsh it was to shoot in. Mm-hmm. And whether, us at home, we don't have to associate the season with that. We can associate it just from the characters we saw in the finished show. But, like, everyone working on the show is going to associate Guatemala with the location and how difficult were people to work with, like Judd, for example. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that is what they're going to associate it with. Rafe claims the season broke Jeff. I think that might be a little hyperbolic. But yeah, I think it just kind of gets forgotten. Like, no one gets brought back from Palau for season 16. And Tom's the only one who gets brought back ever. I mean, you obviously Stephenie and Bobby John came back this season. I'm saying for like future all returning seasons. No. Like Tom's really it's Tom and Steph,
I mean,
and that
really,
was
who would I want to see again besides maybe Rafe or?
I think the interesting people to bring back would have been Rafe. As I said, though, Rafe, if you look at his IMDb, very busy man.
Yeah, he's not going to come back. There's a reason he's coming back.
He's very busy man. Rafe, it would really been, I think the most interesting people on a returning season would have been Rafe and possibly Lydia. Mm-hmm. I agree.
And you said Amy comes back on another show or another.
Amy from Vanuatu, not Amy from the season.
Yeah, see, I would have liked to see Amy again, but she was already like 40 and injured herself.
She did go pre-merge.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, I know.
You have to make merge.
Yeah, I almost feel like you have to make merge. Gotcha. I almost feel like, I know in All-Stars, I don't know if anyone in All-Stars was pre-merge, but definitely I feel like you have to make merge to be considered. Fans versus favorites, though, has a very heavy leniency and bias towards the most recent seasons, 15, 14, 13, for sure, for that season. Because they want you to remember, they want the casual audience to remember who is on the season, because at the time there was no streaming these shows. They weren't on DVD. True. How are you supposed to rewatch them unless you had them on TiVo or VHSs? Like, it wasn't like you just go online and just rewatch the season. So like, they wanted you to remember them. So this is kind of like a season that kind of just gets forgotten. It wasn't like super well beloved when it was finished. Mm-hmm. It's great upon a rewatch, but at the time there was it kind of gets forgotten. There's so many seasons. We're talking about season 11. True. It kind of gets lost in the middle. So it's unfortunate. I think that if eventually Rafe came back one day, which probably won't happen because he's like about to do some big TV show, that'd be the only person I would be like, oh, I would love to see Rafe again, because I feel like Rafe coming back wouldn't be like a no threat to anyone. But if Rafe played like if he played a better game than last time, I think he has a very legitimate chance of winning. Crazy enough. Okay, so next question is from Giovanni again. He just did a question through Patreon and then through YouTube, so fair enough. He asks, who likes beer more, Judd, Brett from Millennials vs. Gen X, or Carl from Dave vs. Goliath? Now, to be fair, I have not watched Millennials vs. Gen X in like 5 years, so I forgot how much Brett loves beer. But I remember Carl from Dave vs. Goliath. Like, the moment they get beer on that, like at the merge or whatever, Carl's like, he is drunk. Do you remember this? Oh, it's okay. Mary doesn't have the greatest memory. To be fair though, I don't have like a wonderful memory of Carl.
I don't have a great
drunk.
memory about Survivor.
I can say that for a fact that that Judd loves beer and Carl loves beer.
I was going to say,
if Brett loves beer as much as those two, they all three would have had a party.
If you're willing to lie about it, I guess. I mean, maybe that's the most, the highest standard of who loves it the most, but I don't know.
The next question is from Behind the Spotlight. Probably the most question. All right, this is probably the most interesting question I've ever pondered about season 11 is the original idea. The original idea is that it was supposed to shoot elsewhere. Oh, I didn't. By the way, I didn't know this.
No.
Did you know? I didn't know that. For a long time, I thought the swap was when Mark Burnett had to abandon Survivor Arabia, planned and scouted for Jordan. That was season 4. We'll talk about that when we do Marquesas. But I recently watched that history, and whereas I thought there was a season 11 story, it's actually season 4. Hold on. Apparently 9/11 forced Survivor shoot Marquesas, but back to my question. All right. We'll talk about Marquesas when we get to Marquesas, when we go back and do that. All right. Apparently 9/11 forced Survivor to shoot, but back to my question. Wasn't Guatemala also last minute pinch hit locations-wise? If so, what was the original plan for season 11? And why did production have to fall back in Guatemala in the 11th hour? First off, if this is true, I had zero idea about this, so I cannot answer this question. Are you Googling it right now?
I was just going to look at Survivor Wiki.
Yeah, look it up real quick. Maybe the wiki has an answer. But in my opinion, like, if this was a last minute location, I feel like this would have been a very hard location to get last minute. Because aren't they in like a national park with Maya ruins? I feel like if anything, this location probably would have taken them a while to get. Versus just like the beaches of Panama for Pearl Islands. Like, like general beach. Like Marquesas in essence is just a beach. Like it's nothing like special. It's in the South Pacific, like, and they go there so many times. But like Guatemala is like so unique. I cannot imagine this was like, all right, we need a location last minute. Let's go to Guatemala, this place we've never been to.
It doesn't say anything that I could see on the wiki, but
okay,
I'm sure it may be somewhere. Just
I'm not saying you're wrong behind Spotlight. I'm just saying if it is, I would be shocked, and I would love to have a source of information for if it is, because that's news to me if it's true. Though eventually, maybe when I do the Guatemala Secrets video, I'll find out. Anyways, Joey Chan asks what transpired on the voting strategy during that season. It appears the contestants strategized off camera. Morgan, Brianna, Blake, Brian, and Amy's eliminations are confusing to the viewers. How much of a jerk? Okay, I'll start with that because the second question. So, like, how much strategizing goes off camera? I think probably a ton. Like, I feel like every season is probably a ton. Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily surprised by any of those.
I think if you really watch it, like before the swap, by the way, the swap was insane. I can't believe I haven't talked about this. Before the swap, it was kind of like challenges all the time. Yeah. Like there was like, it felt like episode start, we get like 2 minutes at camp, reward challenge, 2 minutes at camp, immediate challenge, 2 minutes at camp, voting. And it's like, I felt like for like 3 or 4 episodes, the season takes a little bit to get going. For 3 or 4 episodes, I was like, I don't know like who's with who or like what's what, or like I just know Judd's a little insane. Gary's lying about himself being a football player, and Danny knows that he's a football player. Like it really, and Bobby John, Stephenie are here. It's like really don't really like. It's just like no, it's such a lack of focus in the first 3 or 4 episodes, and then once we get to that, once the insane swap happens, the season really picks up. It reminds me of Vanuatu when swap happens. At least the season's interesting though in the first few episodes. But yeah, it's just like insane to me. The swap. Okay, so like let's think about this. The swap goes like this. What I'm trying to wrap my brain around this.
They had that reward where they
like who's the most deserving of food or something like that? Who's the most hungry? Danny. She gets like an apple. This swap I'm trying to wrap my head around. So it's like so like what 4 people went on a picnic lunch and then like
well they have like it was like almost that challenge where you think that they're gonna see who ranks who because it's like who's the most deserving of an apple or who's the who's the most who's the most hungry, who's the best at whatever, and so you think
who most deserves a picnic lunch on the top of the ruins.
You think it's like one of those things where you rank people.
Yeah.
But it ends up being a tribe swap. It was like the weirdest tribe swap ever, basically.
I honestly, it's probably the worst tribe swap in terms of like I cannot tell you who swaps. Like the first 10 seasons, there's no swap.
Well, who goes on the picnic? Amy?
The first like 9 seasons, I could tell you every time there's a swap, like, okay, I know who was in the old tribe, who's in the new tribe. This swap happened, I couldn't tell you who was in the old tribe, who's in the new tribe. It was so confusing to me because we barely got to know anybody on the original tribes in the first 3 or 4 episodes. I couldn't tell you. I know. I think Brian, I know for a fact Brian was, because he was one of the people who's like, who has the most tribe pride? And basically that's whoever has most tribe prides is about to get screwed because they're staying on their original tribe while the other while we put more people from the other tribe on your tribe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because Brian ends up going like right away or soon after. He's just like, oh, what a terrible swap. I don't know where this came from. What a horrible swap. I wish I'd taken notes on it because
it was different, but
it was so bad.
There's a reason they haven't done it again.
I hope they don't ever do it again like this because I know next season starts with 4 tribes, but I know it just ends up getting dissolved into 2 not long after. Because next season they start with 4 tribes and then but it's like 4 tribes of 4. It's like, how long can you really have a tribe of 4 people?
Yeah.
Like they lose 2 immunities, we all of a sudden have plow again, you know, where it's like 2 people on tribe. So anyways, tribe swap is terrible. All right, next question. About off-screen stuff. Like, there's so much that happens off-screen, and the show, like, they only have so much time.
Right.
I know they try to tell a cohesive story, so if anything, it's like more like, how much did the show not show us? And I feel like the answer is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much of a jerk was Stephenie to her tribe mates? It was said she oh wow. But first off, this is all rumors. It was said she sabotaged her tribe's food and water supply by taking a lion's share the entire time. I don't know
From
the
what
actual
we could
answer.
see, she ate a lot. And a lot of other people said, like Judd said she ate a lot. Lydia said she ate a lot. Somebody else said she ate a lot on TV.
She kind of acted entitled in Palau, and she definitely acted entitled here. So I mean, these are unsubstantiated rumors unless somebody officially has come out and said this, unless it was like maybe Stephenie. I don't know, Stephenie like, well, you know what? On Guatemala, I took everyone's food. So it sounds believable.
Yeah, I could see it for sure. Yeah, that's part of the whole reason why she didn't win, I think. I mean, not just the food, but just her attitude of she was always focused on herself, and I don't feel like she thought a lot about what other people were thinking or feeling.
No, I don't think Stephenie was playing a game to win the game. I think Stephenie was playing a game.
She wanted to.
I know. Well, Russell Hantz also wanted to win. Not that we've gotten there yet, but I'm saying that sure, like, okay, you can play to you want to win the game. I'm saying she wasn't playing a game that was ever going to have her win at the end.
Yeah.
Like she needed to go against bigger goats than herself, like Jamie or Judd. People who at the Final Tribal Council would possibly do worse than she would. I cannot see Judd all of a sudden being polite at Final Tribal Council.
No.
I think it's her best shot. Next question is from Brian, who asks about the Cindy car decision. We've discussed that, but his follow-up question is, do you think the twist of the car giveaway was stupid/unfair? So just on paper, the premise of it, is it unfair to Cindy?
It's a lot of pressure to make a snap decision that big.
It's like you won this challenge, and actually winning the challenge,
it's not
the right decision is to get nothing from it.
It's not like where they've done where, oh, you won the food challenge. Oh, wait, would you
Who
rather
do you
have,
bring with?
or even a loved one challenge?
Yeah.
No, not that. You know how they randomly will be like, okay, you won the loved one visit, or you could let everyone else have their loved one visit. Like that's not as big of a deal. That
hasn't happened the first 11 seasons. I'm trying not to get too much into the future seasons.
Well,
we're talking about through the first 11.
The stakes are way less.
Yeah.
In other.
I try not to touch too much on future seasons and their moral decisions.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Because here's like really the first time this kind of thing happens. Because yes, in a future season, for sure, at least one, they'll be like, do you want to go on a loved one's visit? Or do you want everyone else to have a loved one's visit? Sure, like this kind of the same vein.
I'm sure there's something
This is the first time in 11 seasons we've had, do you want to give up your reward basically for everyone else? Because like even when like Judd wins the lobster and steak and everything, it's not Judd, do you want to give up your lobster and steak for Stephenie and Bob? I think he pick Stephenie and Bobby John, or what a terrible decision.
Right, he could have not picked anyone and just had the whole meal himself. Yeah, they said
no,
that.
It would. But listen, all I'm saying is that his decision was not, do you want to give up your lobster and steak for everyone else to have food? It wasn't like that. It was like, who else do you want to join you?
Right.
Like, sure, he could have picked no one, but like he still would have got food. Cindy in this case
would have got nothing.
Would have got nothing. There's no like, Cindy, do you want a lesser car and everyone else gets a car? It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, Cindy, you get this amazing luxury car and everyone gets nothing, or Cindy, you get this economy car and everybody gets an economy car too. It wasn't like that, which is kind of the Judd thing.
Overall, I feel like it was not the best production.
They bring it back though.
Do they?
Yeah. Well, we just talked about how they bring it back for the loved one stuff. Like, you don't go on the loved ones visit and everyone else gets the loved ones visit.
I'm saying that's different. That's like way less stakes. You get to see your loved one eventually. Unless they die, hopefully not, between the time you get off the show.
I know you haven't seen Caramoan yet, but when we get to Caramoan, this decision comes up, and the person, the one or two people who give it up, like, it is like the worst thing in the world that they gave it up for everyone else.
Well, don't ruin it.
I haven't told you anything. I haven't told you who.
You just did.
This is like 15 seasons away.
All right, whatever.
You'll forget. You just said you have terrible memory when it comes to Survivor.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, Reed asked, do you think the season needed Bobby John and Steph? I think the answer is no, it didn't need Bobby John and Steph.
No, but they definitely added to it.
Does it make season better?
I think it made it better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and apparently people think this is not a great season, so it did need them.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's almost memorable because of these two players, but it's almost like, would the season have been like a wonderful Palau level season had there been no Bobby John stuff? Let's say not even Wanda and Jonathan. Let's say no returnees, just 16 people, all brand new, just these 16 people. You know, does Danny still win? It's really questions like, does Danny still win then? Like, because things play out completely different.
I think Rafe probably could have won if Stephenie wasn't there.
Yeah, but Rafe and Steph were like hand in hand. Like, who's Rafe hand in hand with then? Yeah. You know, like, things completely could shift because these two people are not there.
It would have been completely different.
It would have been completely
I'm glad they did it. It was a good season because of it.
So that's all the questions we have. I'm sure we missed some things. I want to be clear. I'm going to put, this is a disclaimer for the beginning of the video. Wesley, remind yourself with this at the beginning. We love every player who is on this season. Anything negative we say is not because we dislike a player. We like actually every player on the season. I just want to be clear. There's no one like Brian Heidick here where it's like, oh, or Johnny Fairplayer's like, ah. We like everyone here. All right, disclaimer over. Okay, well, I'm gonna put that at the beginning. If I don't, it'll be here at the end, and there it is. Maybe I'll leave in both places just as a reminder. But anyways, that's all we have for Guatemala. Do you have anything else for Guatemala yourself?
No, I really enjoyed it. I liked the season overall. It was a good season.
Yep. Next time we're doing Exile Island. We move surprisingly. So we kind of like All Stars moves us up to 18 people. Vanuatu was 18 people. Palau was 20, though really it was 18 after Wanda and Jonathan. This season was 18, but next season we go back to 16. Haven't been at 16 in a while. And next season, Exile Island becomes not just a one-off episode twist, becomes the twist for the season. The Idol gets superpowers next season.
Sweet.
Is the only way to explain it. The Idol gets goes from which we barely even talked about, but the Idol this season basically was like having another immunity necklace. No one could vote for you. And there was no surprise reveal. Next season, it gets superpowers. It gets way overpowered to the point where they have to, after next season, and I think in Cook Islands too, they have to bring it back down to where it is now.
Really?
Yeah, it's way overpowered next season and the season after. So you'll see. Anyways, next season, we see people like Suri, who you do know. Mm-hmm. Some other people you don't know, but are big characters. The Judd of next season is Shane.
Haven't I seen this season?
No, you've never seen the season.
I thought I had.
No, you've just seen
I'm positive I've seen Siri's first season.
Yeah, no, you haven't seen Suri's first season. You've seen her on other seasons.
Okay.
First off, she's on Micronesia. She's on Heroes vs. Villains, where you've definitely seen her. And then you saw her in Game Changers.
Okay.
But you haven't seen her on Exile Island. We're going way back to her origin story. Where Suri is one of the biggest characters ever after this season. She kind of takes the place of Stephenie in a way. Because Stephenie loses luster after Guatemala. But Suri gains all the luster. I think it's the right way of saying that. All right, well, until then, we'll see you all next time.
Bye.